Hello, everybody, and welcome to another SIG Windows meetup. It's the 24th of September, and thank you all for attending. As always, please adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct. All right, let's dive in. Last week, we talked about the Contributor Summit. I'm hoping that a lot of you guys got a chance to sign up. They always have some goodies. It's a good event to attend, and as well as the you have the ability to network with other folks. There were a couple of other events at KubeCon. There's one that me and Deep will attend, and there's also I don't know what the right term for it, but it's a Meet the Maintainers area that they will actually host. I'm gonna sign up for a few hours there. If any of you guys are interested in they're going to KubeCon and are interested in contributing more in terms of being the face of SIG Windows, just let me know. We'll plug you into the different events that are happening.
Yeah, if you could drop me down Slack. So I did that in Barcelona, and I had one person come by. Hopefully there will be more in the States.
Yeah, I was there in Barcelona as well, and I don't think anybody came for SIG Windows. I did have a few folks that came for Harbor, since I'm a maintainer for Harbor as well. I guess it varies, right? It depends, but having a presence there is an advantage. The event that Deep and I are going is added to the Contributor Summit, and that's where new contributors are looking for areas to come in and lend their expertise. Now, I don't know how many of those guys are going to have Windows expertise or interested in Windows, but being there is, it's at least representing our SIG, and if folks want to attend, that's overall good.
Yeah,
so,
that's the SIG meet and greet.
Yeah, so
okay,
that's basically the two things, right? SIG meet and greet, and then there's also the Meet the Maintainer. We'll continuously attend these things. That way, we're not the only SIG that doesn't have people there. But if folks don't have questions for us, it is what it is. All right, let's get into our agenda. So, Patrick, on the announcements from the release team.
Yeah. Sorry, I was pulling this back up. Yeah, so the release team has been formed, and they've got the preliminary dates in there. October 15th is enhancements freeze, and so that's when we need to have all the KEPs reviewed. I did, one minor update to the KEP already, and that was just fixing basically the milestones to say we were working on it in 17 as opposed to, I think it said 15 or 16 before that. And then I've got another one we can discuss a little bit later. But the main thing is that's only 21 days to get those merged. So if anybody else has KEPs that need updates, let us know so we can make sure that we get time for them on the in the weekly meeting agendas here. Are there any updates needed for like the GMSA KEP, Deep?
No, pretty much this will be a test stabilization milestone. Make sure the tests are good, and we'll hopefully try to get some actual customer data. So I stayed in the issue that it'll stay in beta. We'll try to move to GA based on feedback on 117.
So, is it not possible to go GA in 117? Or
so I think besides Jeremy, I still have not received any feedback of like actual enterprise customers using it. So I think typically what I've seen in some of the other SIGs is they look for real deployment data to go to GA. So, and I think we explained that in the KEP as well, that we'll look for at least 2 enterprise deployments or something.
Yeah, so we might start using it within PKS at some point. I don't have the exact date at which point we'll be able to give you that signal. But the problem is that we're trailing Kubernetes releases by at least 1x, right? So we'll have to see what we can do about that. But okay, I mean, we can keep it in beta one more milestone.
Okay.
And then we were asked about the kubeadm work, if we're going to advance that from alpha. So I pinged Kalia, and I see she's on right now to see if we're going to have time to invest in that and moving forward, and what would it mean from a feature set, or if it's just stabilization.
Yep, that sounds good. I'll talk to Lubomir.
Excellent. Thank you, Kalia. Yeah, so the two biggest things there is, what are we waiting for us to push it to beta? Is there any work required, and do we have time to do it? Cool. Patrick, back to you.
Okay. And the other one was the CSI stuff. Do we want to just leave that in alpha for now, or is that something that we want to?
Yeah, that's the plan for 117 to stay in alpha, move CSI proxy to alpha as well, and then we can go to beta together in 118.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Okay, so let me click on this next doc so I can share it out.
Patrick.
Yeah.
So on the cap side, I think it would be another one to add to the list would be maybe overlay. We have this is still in alpha state, like the kubeproxy overlay mode.
And that's just overlay with Flannel.
I think it's just the workflow that we use for like creating the service, like creating the services and the rules for the load balancing associated with that for the overlay networking driver. I don't think it's necessarily specific to Flannel, but Kalia can probably give more answer on that.
Okay. All right. I'll put that on the list, and we'll dig in on that, because I don't know if we had a separate KEP open for that.
I don't think there's a cap for that. It was just when we got it out, it just came out in beta.
So I can help write up a KEP on how to.
Okay. Well, let's go to the SIG release channel and ask what their process is.
It's out of 3, right? So yeah, it might not require a cap. Isn't that all out of 3, David?
I don't think necessarily, because it's part of kubeproxy, right? So it's I don't think that would be considered out of tree.
Okay.
Like the CNI plugins, maybe, yeah, they're out of tree, but I don't think kubeproxy would be out of tree.
Okay. Yeah, because we had announced it as an alpha in either 14 or 15. I forgot which version.
Yeah, and we have the conformance test dashboard, and it shouldn't be an alpha feature. It has the same level of testing and the same adoption as L2 Bridge.
And can you add some enterprise customer data, David? I mean, we should be able to get
Yeah,
that.
there's enterprise customers using it as well, yeah.
Yeah, so I think if we add that, then we'll be able to.
Okay. All right, so moving forward onto the Windows images. Let me see who's here real quick. So this is a discussion that we started, looks like a little over a month ago. I'm looking to see, is Yuju? Yuju's not on the call. But basically, there's some PRs that Claudio has open that update the scripts that build the test images to be able to use a remote Docker host to build Windows images. And so the idea is that the same prod job that builds these on Linux could then go ahead and build them on Windows using that remote host, and then still be able to do things like the Docker login needed to push them into the same registry, so then they can be, promoted over to the same GCR repo that holds the other test images. And so we had outlined a few different options, but where we had left off on was seeing whether or not it made sense to automatically create VMs in GCP that were tied to like this build life cycle. So basically, like when we were going to do a Kubernetes build, create a Windows VM, do the container builds, and then throw it away, or whether or not we wanted to do something that was longer term. Because I've got the credits to do this on Azure, but I know there was some concern about whether or not they wanted to be basically maintaining an extra set of credentials that were there versus just creating things on demand. But I don't think we have all the right people here to discuss that. But did anybody else have any feedback on this?
I've added a couple of extra things to the PRs. One issue that Yuju had was the fact that we were using isolation Hyper-V when building the Windows images. So we can actually build multiple OS versions for those images, basically for both the LTS and semi-annual channel images. And apparently they do not support Hyper-V in their Google Cloud, and basically that was blocking their progress. So what I've added was basically the ability to have multiple Windows nodes with any OS versions to be used when building images, and basically build based on the OS version tag. Use a different OS node, different Windows node. So that basically should also enable the Windows image building process on Google as well. I've been using it for a few weeks already, and the building process is fine with using multiple nodes.
Yeah,
so do we support the 1903 SAC release or 19H1 SAC in GCP?
I mean, the E2E team registry has both OS versions in them.
Oh, okay.
So we can just run tests on them.
Yeah, but you're running those on the Azure VM, so we have provisioned, right?
Yeah.
So basically in this option, I don't have a lot of background. I took a brief look through the PR, but so just to clarify, so here the prowl job kicks off, and then there are hosts in the Windows hosts in Azure pre-provisioned that builds the image and sort of knows where to push it so that it gets appropriately staged. Is that a super high level?
Well, today Claudia is pushing them to a private registry, and then we pass that in the manifest list to kube test. So that way the images are pulled from that private well, it's not a private registry, it's on Docker Hub, but it's pulled from a non-default registry as opposed to the default one. And what we're trying to do is get something hooked up to the prowl process so that the bots can go ahead and promote these images and put them in the public GCR repository. So that way the test images become multi-OS and multi-arc. So that way we could have, Linux x64, Linux ARM64, and the couple Windows versions on x64.
Great.
Okay. Well, I'll reach out and try to continue that discussion. Otherwise, I'm fine with proceeding with with running those on Azure if that makes more sense. I just need to get someone from test infrastructure to weigh in on that.
I have a quick question here.
Yeah.
Is there a prowl job set up for this? Because last time I checked, there wasn't, and the discussion was around the fact that they are still doing this manually, and I was just looking through test grid right now.
Okay, yeah, it could be.
I didn't find anything.
I think they're still doing it manually. I mean, last week someone was asking for an image build.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what. Okay, yeah, I should have read this first paragraph again. Okay, yeah, my mistake. It does say the process is manual and ad hoc.
Yeah, it's quite hard to get in touch with people who can actually push those images.
But I just pasted a link to test grid. None of the job, or very few of the jobs in there actually work, or had results. But I think they are starting to hook up something to this. I don't know. That's what the image builder job indicates, or at least that's what I suppose. But I don't know. But it never seemed to have run ever. So I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Did you have anything else on that topic?
Not me, just waiting for updates from other people.
Okay. Okay. So next up that I had on the agenda was some updates around Container D. So I've got the tracking board set up here, and so we're starting to accumulate some fixes over in this the CRI branch. I only got one open that fixed some of the run as username tests, and the rest of the failing tests should have something tracked somewhere on this board. And so we're starting to make some progress there. And then I've got a number of issues here that I've got people from the Windows team involved in looking at that may need some changes in Windows. And so once I've got some ETAs on those, then I'll update that. But I think I may be able to test some private fixes on Azure before they're released, which would at least help us determine whether things are actually fixable in Windows or whether there's also changes needed in Container D that need to be tracked on this board. And so one of the most interesting ones right now is that like the single file mappings are not working quite as expected if there's an existing file there. And so this means that things like the termination files work because that file doesn't already exist, but the host's file already exists on the Windows container, and so populating that is still failing because it can't be superseded with the version that is created by the kubelet today. And so we've got things being tracked there. If anyone's got specific questions on those, feel free to to raise them in Slack or in these meetings. So that's all I had for now. And then Annalena and Claudio already have things up and running on the test grid. Oops. Easiest way to find that is actually to look at. Oh, wrong. Clicked the wrong thing. I actually linked there from that dashboard, and so occasionally we'll see something where something doesn't get set up correctly or there's a timeout, but most of the time things are starting to get a little more consistent. So we're working on driving those failures out. So I think that's all I have for today. Did anybody have other topics they wanted to bring up?
No other topic. I saw that you moved the discussion around the Hyper-V isolation out. And actually that's similar. I don't know if that's for the same reason that Yuju mentioned that in Google Cloud, they don't support Hyper-V. Maybe that's, there's some contractual issues there. So I'd love for us to have a discussion on that at some point. I realize we might not have the right context, but let's figure out how to have that.
Yeah, I don't know what the context on GCP is, whether it's whether the virtualization extensions aren't working the hypervisor platform for nesting, or I don't have the context there.
But ultimately, the reason why I put that there is it's going to become a problem for pretty much every public cloud provider outside of Azure and every other virtualization vendor, because if we support Hyper-V containers, that means that the Hyper-V role needs to be enabled, which I think may violate Microsoft's support policy if the lowest layer on top of the physical hardware is not Hyper-V.
Yeah. And so I've got the name of someone that runs that program, and I'll talk to them and see what they want to do about next steps, because I don't know if that's a deal where it needs to be done on a per hypervisor vendor basis or how they run that. So, I've got a name, and I'll see what we need to do next to get those discussions going.
And if we need to do that in private, we can do that. We'll probably need to involve myself, probably Peter from Google. I don't know, maybe Bob Wise from AWS and Deep probably.
I don't think it's necessarily, because Docker doesn't run a hypervisor. It's going to be more about, like if the customer is running, Hyper-V, well, they're fine today. If they're running VMware or if they're running on, like AWS or GCP, as you mentioned, then.
Yeah. Well, I'm including Deep more as a technical lead on our project, not necessarily because he has the same issue.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
And we'll look at your I know that Deep, you and me need to do a little bit of legwork for VMworld, so we'll take that offline and figure out what we need to do in our presentation. So we'll tackle that in the next couple of weeks.
You mean KubeCon, not VMworld?
Sorry. They're back-to-back conferences, so in my mind they're sorry, my bad.
I thought VMworld already happened.
That was the US one. The Europe one is a week and a half before KubeCon.
Oh gosh, you're going to Europe and then straight back to the US.
That's right.
Okay. I'll carry an extra coffee for when I see you.
That's right. All right, cool. All right, well, everybody have a great rest of your day, and good luck on the KEBs and the work that we're doing moving forward 117. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.